how wonderful your product, your service is, if you can't convey what's unique about it, you will struggle to win new customers. And as we know from previous sessions, not being able to speak in public and certainly not being able to speak with confidence is nothing new, and it certainly isn't anything unique. Many people struggle with the same issues. So today's session is all about giving you some tools that will make it easier for you to access that all-important message as and when you need to. So we're going to look at building a message map. And finally, we're going to look at how you actually pitch to your customers and conduct yourself in a meeting. Now, remember, it's all about understanding your audience, preparing your content, delivering with confidence, and controlling your environment. Building a message map will give you the tools to do pretty much all of those things. So what exactly is a message map? Well, a message map is really just a visual representation of the thoughts in your head. It will give you a quick, easy way to collect and order your thoughts. It will give you a headline that can become a catchphrase or a slogan if you choose to. It will give you a short pitch, so 10 to 15 seconds. And yes, you can say pretty much everything you need about your business to get somebody interested in that space of time. It will give you a 30-second pitch, and it will give you the ability to build out a longer, more detailed story as you go along. And of course, once you put all of that together, you will have the confidence to sell your product and your service. So as I said, a message map is a visual representation of an idea, a concept, a message. You can use it for all sorts of purposes. You don't just have to use it for your company or your product. You can also use it to convey a new idea to your staff. Let's say, for example, you wanting to implement a new accounting software package, and the staff might be a little bit resistant to that because they know and love the old one. If you build a message map, it will make it easier for you to convey why this new package is going to be good for the business. So message maps consist of 3 steps. Step 1, you're going to create a Twitter-friendly headline. Step 2, you're going to support that headline with 3 key benefits. And step 3, you're going to reinforce those 3 benefits with stories, statistics, and examples. And it looks like this. So you start off with a headline, which is essentially the name of your business and what your business does, as succinctly and as clearly as possible. Now, when we're talking about a Twitter-friendly headline, I'm not suggesting that you have to limit yourself to the 280 characters that you're allowed on Twitter. If you can, though, it certainly gives you something that is short, sharp, and without any of that extraneous information that you do not need at a first introduction. The benefits then sit underneath that Twitter-friendly headline. The headline stands pretty much on its own. If that's the only time you have to make an impression on somebody and give them some really quick information about your business to pique their interest, that will stand on its own. But if you've got more time, you can then add in those 3 benefits. The next step to the message map is then to essentially add color and movement to those 3 benefits. And that's where you're going to put in examples, stories, statistics, all of those things that turn a sharp, clear, very concise message into more of a conversation that you have with your potential customer. Now, it might seem a little bit vague when you see it like this, but let's give you an example, and that might snap it into focus for you. So you can create a message map for any product, any brand, any company, any idea, any concept. But what I've done today is create a fictional Australian company that makes muesli. And that company is called Good and Tasty. Now, Good and Tasty, in my fictional conversation with them, told me that they were a boutique producer of small batch muesli, All their ingredients are Australian grown and processed, and they package everything right here in Australia. They only use certified organic ingredients, and they don't use any artificial colors or flavors. They supply supermarkets and health food stores in 6 countries. So in addition to Australia, another 5, and they produce 5 different lines of muesli, so different flavors, different formulations, etc. And of course, it isn't necessary for you to create a message map for each of the product lines, not at this stage, just the company and the brand. So let's have a play with everything we know about good and tasty. So in the case of that Twitter-friendly headline, based on what we know, this gives us a really good, concise idea of the business. So what I've come up with is that Good and Tasty makes all natural small batch muesli. In this very short time that you have to make an impression on someone new, that line encapsulates pretty much everything about the business that will make somebody who's in the business of buying muesli want to know more. And we call it an elevator pitch because it really is the time that it takes, and this is a phrase that was coined way back in the 1950s in the heyday of advertising. It's the time it takes you to travel 3 floors in a lift with someone. If all you have is 3 floors and this is all you can say, by the time you get to that 3rd floor and you step out of that lift, chances are the person you've just told this to, if they're interested at all in muesli, is going to step out with you and say, "Tell me more." And that is where you come with your 3 supporting benefits in that message map. So all good and tasty muesli is, and these are the things that I have chosen to highlight from what Good and Tasty told me. Of course, for your own business, you are going to choose to highlight the 3 benefits that you think are most necessary for a potential customer to know. In this case, we've highlighted Australian grown, considering that they want to expand into an overseas market or new overseas markets. Certified organic and fresh. Those are the 3 things that we have highlighted from Good and Tasty. So if we go back to our message, we've already now got our Twitter headline, which tells us that Good and Tasty makes small batch muesli. And now we've got our 3 benefits. Now that we've got the 3 benefits, we can start expanding that very short, succinct pitch into something slightly longer using those 3 benefits. So we started off with Good and Tasty makes all natural small batch muesli. Now we expand that into Good and Tasty makes all natural small batch muesli. All our mueslis are made from certified organic ingredients, freshly grown in Australia. And that gives us a really good, very short story about Good and Tasty. So as you can see, we've taken the headline and now we've added in those 3 benefits and turned those 3 benefits into a sentence. Now the next step is to add some color and movement to those 3 benefits. So if we look at the 3 benefits that we selected Australian grown, number 1, certified organic, number 2, and fresh, number 3. So what is significant about Australian grown? Well, we could say something along these lines. Ingredients like sun-dried raisins and freshly milled oats are sourced from Australian growers and producers. In the case of certified organic, something along these lines, all ingredients are sourced from certified organic growers, ensuring that all our muesli products are organic. And finally, fresh. We use only the freshest ingredients, which, because they don't have to travel far, reach us in peak condition. Now, if you think about what we've just said, why is it important that a potential customer understands this about Good and Tasty, the muesli manufacturer? When we talk about specific ingredients, we've also highlighted the fact that the muesli consists of lots of different things without us saying our muesli contains lots of different things. So we've mentioned raisins. We've also mentioned that they're sun-dried because that emphasizes the natural component. We've said the oats is freshly milled. Again, it emphasizes the freshness without us saying that. And then we've said we source from Australian growers and producers, which, if we are selling into overseas markets, is a huge selling point because Australia is recognized as a clean green producer of fresh produce and processed food. When it comes to the organic concept, it's not important to just say that we are organic. It is important to say that our growers are certified organic because that way we can prove our supply chain and the provenance all the way through. And that's why we can claim justifiably that our muesli products are organic. And then finally, we talk about the fact that our ingredients are fresh. We talk about the fact that they don't travel far. We've already said that we source locally. That means everything we get comes to us pretty much within reach of our organization. We don't have to get things from elsewhere. Because what we have is in peak condition, it means that the likelihood of it reaching our customer in peak condition is really good. If you're starting with something that is super fresh, chances are it's going to be pretty fresh when it gets to the customer. So all of that is implied from what we've said. We haven't said any of it, but the customer can understand this and get it into their head. So we've painted a picture and they've filled in the blanks. So when we put it all together, our actual pitch over and above that headline sounds like this. Good and Tasty makes all natural small batch muesli. All our mueslis are made from certified organic ingredients, freshly grown in Australia. We're proud that ingredients like our sun-dried raisins and freshly milled oats support Aussie growers and producers who are all certified organic and ascribe to clean and green principles. Since our ingredients are sourced exclusively in Australia, we know exactly where they come from. And because they don't have to travel far, they reach us in peak condition. And there you have it, your pitch for Good and Tasty, the makers of all natural small batch muesli. And that is exactly what a message map gives you. It gives you all the building blocks, and then you put the building blocks together in a way that is comfortable in your mouth. Now, when you are working in an organization and different people are going out and spruiking the message, when you've got that message map and everybody has agreed to the message map, everybody has bought into the message map, it is then up to the individuals to relate the story of that message map in a way that they are comfortable doing. So not everybody is going to talk about it in exactly the same way, but everybody will be talking about exactly the same things, which means your business message will be enforced and reinforced every time a representative talks to a potential customer or anybody else for that matter. And that is why it's important to have that visualization of the principles of the business. Now, I've had people in the past when I've done these sessions and we've done them face to face and we discuss how this works, people have said, oh, but I can just go to my website and just grab my slogan and that'll tell it all. If you go to your website, and please don't do it now, but do it right at the end of today's session, you might find that your website consists of a whole raft of empty platitudes that actually don't say very much about your business at all. You need to talk about your business, not about your mission statement, for example. That's something that you frame on the wall in your reception area. When you're actually conveying the message about your business, you want to get to the point and you want people to walk away with no doubt about what it is that you do. Now, once you've got this pitch down and you've practiced it, you understand it, you can really come up with it at the drop of a hat. That's when you are then in a position to expand that in a conversation, answer questions about your business, etc., and you can take it to the next level in terms of the information that you impart. Once you've got that, of course, you actually have to stand in front of people, whether it be physically or virtually, as we're doing now, and that's when you are going to be delivering your pitch. So just some tips and hints for success. When you're standing in front of an audience and you are delivering a pitch, and every time you speak to somebody, you are pitching, trust me on that one. It's as much about capturing their hearts as it is about capturing their minds. Whether you are speaking to a potential new customer, whether you are speaking to your bank manager because you want finance for your business, every time you do that, you are pitching, and you are pitching not just facts and figures, but you are pitching a story and a feeling so that you are making them feel as well as think. So before you even go into the meeting, you need to think about certain things. When you're in the meeting, you need to think about certain things. You have to end the meeting in a certain way, and you have to follow up. So let's look at that. So most of the work you do is done before the meeting. It's done well before you enter the room, whether that room is an actual room or a virtual room and you are talking to your customers through the medium of Zoom or anything else. You have to prepare. You have to prepare what you are going to say, and that means you need to practice your pitch. You also have to do your homework. You need to know who you're pitching to, what their needs and wants are, and what they are looking for from this pitch. You use the pitch that you've developed from your message map, but you tweak it depending on the specific audience. No two audiences are the same. Everybody has their own needs and wants when it comes to what it is you're actually going to talk to them about. You've done all your preparation, you've got your homework, you know who you're speaking to, you have some sense of who they are, what it is they could be wanting from you. Now you move into the meeting. Start with that short, sharp pitch just to contextualize your business and your products and your services, and then you move into the rest of the conversation. So you need to manage expectations. You need to tell your audience that you intend to present from a slide deck if you are going to be using one, if it's appropriate and if time allows. If all you have is 10 minutes, you might want to think long and hard about having a deck and indeed how long that deck is going to be. You need to remind your audience, if you are in a virtual environment, to please mute their microphones. Let your audience know when they can ask questions. Tell them they're free to ask questions at any time, or say, I'm really delighted that we could have a chat today. I ask that if you have any questions, you hold them to the end of my presentation, because I think many of the questions will be answered along the way. That way they know not to interrupt you. Ask if they would prefer you to concentrate on any particular aspect of your presentation, and be prepared to change what you say and where you were starting if that comes back and it's not quite the order that you'd planned it in. So you start with that pitch so that they understand everything that you want them to understand right up front. And then they might say to you, that's really interesting. You mentioned something about organic farming. Can you tell us more about the organic component of your business? And that's where you're going to start the rest of your story. Similarly, if you're good and tasty and they've heard your 30-second pitch and they've come back and they've said, that's really great. You mentioned that you source only locally. Can you be a little bit clearer about that? Do you mean that you only source within a 100-mile radius, which is sort of the recognized term, or does it mean something else? And you're going to concentrate on that aspect of your business first. Present with confidence. So whatever it is that you do, you need to understand that when you step into that meeting, physical or virtual, you are there for a reason. The people that you are speaking to want to hear what you have to say, or they would not have invited you to speak to them. That should give you a really good measure of confidence to start off with. If you are not comfortable talking to an audience, the better prepared you are, the easier it will be. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had a number of people through sessions, both physical and virtual. And one of the questions that constantly came up was, I'm not a native English speaker. I'm not that confident in my language ability. How do I deal with that? Well, in the first instance, you don't apologize for the fact that you're not a native English speaker. You simply talk as you would talk to anybody else. You might have to slow down a little bit so that people can understand you a little bit better if you have a complicated accent. But if you're prepared and if you deliver real content that is of real value, people will not care that you don't sound exactly like them. And when you are pitching to an international audience, remember, you don't sound like them anyway. Whether you were a native English speaker or not, you're not going to sound like the American audience you're speaking to, or the Canadians, or the Turkish audience, whatever that might be. So remember that who you are and what it is you have to say is important, and they have already recognized that importance by inviting you into that room. So present with confidence. Now, you've delivered your pitch, you've had the meeting, you've said everything you wanted to say. Now is the time for you to gather more information before the meeting draws to a close. This is the time that you ask for questions, and you need to be prepared to answer difficult ones. Now, I don't want you to think about questions as if they were some sort of purgatory. Every question is an opportunity for you to give more information and to present solutions to any problems that might have been raised. People only ask questions when they're interested in what you have to say. If they had immediately discounted what you have to say, all they want to do is get you out of that room as quickly as possible. If they're asking you questions, it's because you've piqued something in them and they're interested. If, when you are presenting, it seems that your audience might be disengaged, you need to ask for feedback. So if you're presenting to one person, you're just having a one-on-one meeting, virtual or physical, and that person seems completely, absolutely disengaged from what it is you're talking about, there could be any number of reasons for that. They might be having just a really bad day. Maybe they've got a sick child at home and they're worried about that. Maybe they're concerned that the COVID lockdown is going to make them close their doors for a period of time. Maybe they just don't like what you have to offer, and that's possible too. But you need to try to tease some information out of your audience. Of course, you don't say, "Excuse me, Mr. Potential Customer, but you looked really bored while I was speaking. Why?" That's not the way to approach it. You're going to say, look, I've told you everything that I can about my product. Have I missed anything? Is there anything that you would like me to go back on and give you some more information about? Is there anything I didn't talk about that you might want to know more about? And they're probably going to come back with, oh yeah, I'm not quite sure about your packaging, or you've told me all this great stuff, but what size is your business? Because they need to know that you can handle the order that they might give you, which could be quite large. So the point is, you have to tease more information out of them. That's very important. You always need to leave the door open. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that even if this potential customer isn't a right fit, maybe they're just not a right fit for now. So ask if you can reconnect with them at a later date. So thank you very much for your time today. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I understand that my product range is probably not quite what you're after at the moment, but we're constantly developing new product lines. So can I touch base with you again in 3 months and tell you about some of those new product lines that will have come on stream by then? That is the way you deal with keeping a door open if there seemed not to be any interest. Of course, if there was interest, this is the time that you say, look, this was a really great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to having a future one with you, and to possibly explore some next steps. So I'll give you a call in about a week to set up a new meeting. That way, you've set a timeline, you've opened the door and you've left it open, and everybody knows that a week from the day of your meeting, you're going to be touching base with them again. If it seems appropriate, and this is very much something that you have to gauge at the time, ask for introductions to other potential customers if this one is not going to pan out. So if all the indications are that these guys just are not buying muesli at the moment, because they really want something more like cornflakes, then you're going to say, look, I absolutely respect the fact that my product just isn't right for you at the moment. And it's probably not going to be a comfortable fit because we're not intending to move down that road. But obviously you as a great business work with so many others. So if you know of anyone else who might be in the muesli market, I would really value you giving me an introduction to them. You lose nothing if they don't do it, but you never know. You don't know who they know, so it might very well pan out differently from the way you've anticipated. Once you've drawn the meeting to a close, obviously you've thanked everyone. You don't leave everyone hanging there. Thank you very much for your time. And you've outlined those next steps. You've opened the door, left it open. Meeting is over, you leave. And this is where so many companies fall over. It's in the follow-up. Once you leave that meeting, you need to make some detailed notes. So who was part of that meeting? Was it just one person? Well, who was that person? Just remind yourself of that. Remind yourself of some of the questions they asked and some of the answers you gave so that you're on the same page the next time you meet them. If you have multiple people there, who were they? What worked? What didn't work for each of the audience members? So which ones seemed to be disengaged? And when you asked a couple of questions of them, did they come back to you? Or did they ask questions that were really difficult to answer, but once you answered, you won them over? Or were there some that just didn't get it at all? What are the future opportunities that may have been identified, etc.? If you don't do that immediately after the meeting, you will almost certainly forget stuff. Send a short thank you note. Reference any feedback that you received and any insights gained. So it was, thank you very much for your time earlier today. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I particularly enjoyed finding out more about your own supply chain issues and where we might be able to plug some holes for you. That way, they also know that you took note of what they said. And in that thank you note, also briefly outline the next steps that you agree to. So as agreed, I'll be touching base with you a week from today to set up a new meeting so we can discuss further steps. Or I will be touching base with you in 3 months when we have those new product lines that I can tell you about. Always set a timeline for the next interaction. If you just say, I'll be back in touch, well, that's very much like don't call us, we'll call you, isn't it? So you have to have something that is definite, even if it's open-ended. So it could be around 3 months or about a week from now, but always put a timeline to it. If it's appropriate, connect with your audience on LinkedIn and any other channels that work in that market. So in some markets, WhatsApp is accepted. If you're working with a potential Chinese customer, you probably have to think of WeChat. And bear in mind that if you are going down the WeChat route, you're probably going to get lots of messages. So just need a method to manage that as well. But once you've seen them, you've met them, you've connected with them through appropriate social media channels, and please not Facebook. That's not appropriate. That's a social media. You want to keep this to the more professional social media aspects of things. Stick with the LinkedIns, and WhatsApp is seen as a professional medium in many countries. Once you've done that, you've really got a good, solid connection to that business, and it puts you in a really good position to go back to them with more information and to start building that relationship. And that brings us to the end of today's pitching session.